Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time zone it is, wherever you're in the world. It is your Lore Saviour talking about a solo TTRPG hex crawl that I saw just before Christmas of 2024 in the year of our Lord Telos that got me so excited that I went straight from the post on Blue Sky that was published by its creator, Crescent Chimera, had a look on Kickstarter, saw how well it did, which was like nearly 500,000 smackers, which for a solo developer, which is what they are here, is an impressive sum of money, real life-changing stuff here. Went through the Kickstarter, saw how well that it did, loved the art style, and then immediately pre-ordered it on BackerKit because it's already been funded and it's passed a fair amount of its stretch goals. I actually think it's passed all of them. We'll go and look at the Kickstarter in just a moment. And I pre-ordered it on BackerKit so I can get a physical copy of the book and all the different goodies that came with it as well. That will be slowly drip-feeding through the year. I've already received one of the expansions, a bounty hunter system, and I'll also be getting them as little like fold-out zines in physical form when all of that is ready to be shipped out. But what is it? Well, it's called Astroprisma, and it's, as I said, it's a solo TTRPG hex crawl with a sort of late 80s, early 90s, throughout the 90s really, sci-fi anime aesthetic, like to the point where the developer has put like a very subtle but very gorgeous, like grainy filter, so it looks like it's being filmed on an old film cassette sort of thing, really capturing that nostalgia vibe that many people of my generation vibe for, you know, the times of yesteryear where the internet brought glories and wonders rather than misinformation and suffering and death. Morbidity aside, it captures a certain retro aesthetic, sort of like a Cowboy Bebop sort of thing, but more on the sci-fi element of exploration. And I was trying to find out bits about this. There's been a couple of interviews with the developer, Crescent Chimera, who's talked about the concept and the development of all of this, which I will touch upon in just a moment. But given how well it did on Kickstarter, I'm genuinely surprised about how few people have actually gone on YouTube and talked about it. Like, it's something that I find really interesting, but at the same time really upsetting. With a lot of these Kickstarters, like they can raise millions and millions of pounds, like Tales of the Valiant, which is like a D&D clone that was done by Kobold Press. That was in excess of $1 million. And yet, I never saw anyone talk about it on YouTube or social media. It was like, oh, this looks really cool and exciting, and then nothing. Which is a very interesting thing indeed. But with Astroprisma specifically, I was really surprised that there hasn't been more coverage by it, especially by those people who like solo TTRPGs and people who like to do things that aren't D&D specific. So I'm going to be popping that cherry once more. Lovely stuff. Let's talk about the game and the art style itself, which is the point where I whiz over into a corner somewhere and you get to have a look at the Kickstarter. As I said, this has been a solo project for Crescent Chimera. When I say that, I do mean literally from the ground up. They did the artwork, they did the design, they learned how to use Blender, which is, I'm not entirely too sure what it is. It's sort of, it's like CGI development thing, like you can do. Well, you're seeing the sort of things you can do with it. You've probably seen like memes and whatnot on Twitter that people have made models and like taken textures and whatnot from games and redeveloped them in a Blender sort of thing. But they learn how to use Blender to make the planets and the various spaceships that you can basically create and purchase and whatnot throughout the course of your game. And they designed the music for this as well. Like, there's an actual soundtrack that goes with the TTRPG, and I absolutely love this. As a musician and a producer myself who has done their own music for the Lore by Night podcast, like, I really like it when like something like this, where it's an all like a one-man band, or in this case a one-woman band or person band if they don't use those specific pronouns. I don't know, so I'm just making assumptions, so do let me know in the comments below if you do catch wind of this, and by all means correct me, because I don't want to offend you. I want to present you, you know, authentically and properly, as we all do. So yeah, I really enjoy that sort of, and love and admire and respect like the amount of effort that has gone into all of this, and even just like the philosophy of like the developer themselves, who likes solo games and loves sci-fi, but there wasn't enough that actually focused on the actual exploration element of it. Usually be focused on like battles or spaceships or planets, which all, to be fair, all very important elements of sci-fi. But a huge portion of the sci-fi that we like, such as like the original Star Wars, for example, and Cowboy Bebop, is the element of travel, is like the journey between A and B, and especially with the older examples that I get, that's the general aesthetic, you know, when looking to the stars, feel it was much wonder rather than doom and gloom. Like, that's the main focus of this game, because that sort of leads us on to the hex crawl. And if you don't know what that entails, a hex crawl is it's a TTRPG where you move from one point of a map to another, and these points are represented by hexagons. Hence the name hex crawl, hexagons, you know. And when you go on a thing, in the case of this game, you roll on a certain event, and depending on what you roll, something happens, whether you discover something on a different planet or a bit of combat or whatever. And the purpose of this game is that you start in the middle of the map and you move from one of the hexagons around you, and then you move to another arena, like further outwards, and the idea is to explore the entire system, as it were. And each time that you roll on something, as I said, there's combat, encounters and whatnot. I actually think it would be a decent idea to show you with an example. So, as I said, I'm kind of remiss to show you the book in whole, because as much as I want to, because this is a really beautifully designed book, like, as I was sort of going on about earlier on, this is by far the most beautiful interior of any TTRPG book I have ever seen. Like, it's pretty much flawless, I think, in terms of a presentational point of view. Like, there's one page I find where there's just a bit too much going on, and it's related to hacking, because of course there's a sci-fi thing, and as it leans more into that late 80s, 90s sort of thing, hacking is like a sort of really cool exploring the metaverse sort of thing, with all that excitement that they brings, when back in a time when the metaverse didn't mean fucking cryptocurrency cringe and fucking misogynist, ruining social media platforms and just generally the whole condition of the human fucking race. Anyway, if we have a look at the exploration pages, I'm going to use this as an example. With this particular example, it's clearly labelled, there's a character sheet where it's all just blank. And you start in the middle, and ignore the other symbols that are in it, because as I said, this is all an example, and you move one particular ring. So in that case, you can see that there's like an inner ring, a middle ring, and an outer ring. So let's just say, for example, that we move up north to the inner ring. And what it reads here, the zone that borders the central star is the inner ring, on page 67. Temperatures in this area are extremely high to some close proximity to the star, with the solar flares that can damage starships being a common occurrence. 8 instructors built to capture the star's energy, known as the Helios. Forms are also frequently found in this ring. So basically the whole setting, if that wasn't a bit of a giveaway, is kind of in a way, a post-apocalyptic setting. Like, society and societies, I should say, have explored into space, and you're sort of every person for themselves sort of thing, you know, trying to survive on your ship, and whenever you move, you use a bit of fuel. And I suspect that there are ways of regaining fuel, because I haven't properly looked through this, admittedly, and also it's not been quite a while since I had that brief look through it. So, again, you're just going to have to pre-order it on BackerKit to find out more, and you'll find a link in the description below. So as we're in the inner ring, I'll then turn to the inner ring portion of the book, and I'll then roll on a d6 to determine the sort of encounter. If it's an even number, you use one particular table, and if it's an odd number, you then roll on a different table. So there's 2 sets of d6 rolls, and I think I will actually go ahead and do this. I'll go to my big old bag, put out the first fucking d6 that I find, and it is... where is it? Got this orange d6 here, which is kind of appropriate because the writing is orange for the inner ring. So anyway, I'm going to roll a d6. I landed on a 5, so it's a planet. So I then turn to page 73. I'm going to roll a d6 and got a 6. And, oh god, this is a fun word. Ecumeniopolis planet. The greatest marvels of the old world, massive planets where surface is entirely consumed by urban sprawl. Also like Coruscant from the more modern Star Wars films. I nearly said Spider-Man, I don't know why. All natural life resources in this ecosystem has been destroyed in favour of expansion of the megacity. Now these planets are completely deserted, becoming giant, exhibiting ghost towns. So, well, that's pretty fucking bleak. So really, there's not much life going here at all. It's just a net. As again, it just sort of feeds into this whole post-apocalyptic setting, which is kind of unique, really. And given the fact that in this mode of play, it's just me in my ship flying around, really makes it a very lonely experience. Like there's ways you can develop the system in here where you can have a crew and you go on with a group of NPCs, and there's also ideas in developing this with a group of people. Either like a more traditional play with a games master is running it with a group of players, or you do what I tend to do, is that you run it with somebody else and then you like bounce off what happens narratively with the ST. I was actually just thinking there's also an oracle table in here where you roll on a dice, and depending on what you get, you can like try and work out the narrative really of what's going on when you're untoo sure and you want to like to populate the world or determine certain events that are happening. So the question that I'm trying to think is like when like a ghost town sort of thing. Are there actually people living here? If we're going to lean on the post-apocalyptic idea, let's actually try and find out: are these buildings standing tall and proud? You know, as in people who've just fucked off and left, or are they in ruin? Right. So is this mega city in ruins? I'm going to roll on a d6 if we use the oracle table here, which I'm still not showing you. Another 6. Yes, and then you've got a load of other options to roll through as well. Another 6 options, so you roll another d6. So yes, and there's some extra spice going on. 4. Yes, and order. Okay, so using that and the particular word prompt that we have, I get the impression that yes, and the buildings are in ruin is what I was asking. Because the government of this society, of these planets, or government I should say, decided to demanded that everybody just left en masse because an alien invasion took place and completely ransacked the place. So there, just a basically 3 words, yes and order, has inspired this bit of world building. So now we need to roll the specific encounter that happens on this planet, as we've now sort of ascertained that these buildings are completely fucked over, and it's sort of, well, as I said, they're really harbouring on that apocalyptic setting here. Of course, you don't have to, that's just what I'm doing for this little ad-libbing. I haven't prepared a character sheet for which there are several classes that you can use and different weapons and whatnot. I'm just sort of demonstrating the bare bones basics of this. You may have come up with something completely different, and that's absolutely fine. It's also part of the fun of the solo TTRPGs, that really you just come up with anything that comes to mind, and as long as it makes sense to you, that's all that matters. So let's roll on this planet setting thing. A 5. So that leads us to trapped in the sewers. Toxic fumes and grey smoke coming from hundreds of abandoned factories in the area make it impossible to breathe. You enter the underground level where there is still some breathable air and oxygen left. The city sewers have been taken over by alien life, which feeds into what I was saying, coincidentally, trying to find refuge from the polluted surface. As you pass the sewer gates, you hear a scratch from the opposite end of the canal. One of the alien beasts have noticed your presence. Roll grey. Success, you're able to flee and close the sewer gates, getting caught. Or failure, the alien beast attacks you before you can escape, and then you have to fight, go into a bit of combat, which is really simple. You roll a d10, add a particular modifier. If that succeeds, then you do the damage that you want to do, but if it fails, the thing then hits you on its turn. And then each of the different enemies and whatnot have got different stats, and which you roll to determine what happens. So if we use the Xeroptera Predator, which is the example here. So the Xeroptera Predator, which is like this sort of alien, let's just say hypothetically that we failed our roll and we're now in combat with this. It's now its turn to hit us, and it goes to roll some damage. Now you then roll on a d10, which I'm going to have to pull out because I forgot this uses d10s as well. This uses different dice types, by the way. I have a red D100, but really doesn't matter, and I roll to see what it would do. And that is an 8, which would mean that it would do its vampiric bite attack, and it deals a d10 plus its Vig, restoring HP equal to half the damage dealt, rounding down, and its Vig is 4, and I would roll that again. 10, 14 divided by 2 is 7, so it would do 7 damage. Sorry, it would deal 14 damage, which I'm just guessing is quite a lot of damage here, and then it would restore half of that, which is really simple, really. Like, there's not really much to this at all, which I I really like, because one of the things that I find a bit of a hurdle sometimes with solo TTRPGs is that the element of doing a lot of dice rolls. I mean, we all like rolling dice, but you find that if you do it a lot of times, that it can really slow down. Like, you spend so much time just building the world and like answering this, that, and the other, that you sort of get lost in the fiction of it, and then you do a bit of combat and it doesn't last very long. It's like, well, that it kind of sort of wastes the point or whatever. And I also feel that a lot of that also feels down to the fact that if you do it with a game like Morkborg or Karen or Basic Fantasy, where it's like generic fantasy, or in the case of Morkborg, the complete opposite. Again, a post-apocalyptic thing, so or pre-apocalypse, as it were, where the setting is kind of vague, and it sort of allows you to come up with a lot of the details yourself, which is fun, don't get me wrong, but as a solo player, you just want to get on with the action sort of thing. So there's something like Astroprisma here, like you're constantly moving forward. Well, once we've done that bit of encounter, we would then leave, and then I would choose to go on a separate location. So in this scenario, I would go clockwise, so we went north, so it's now gone to northeast. And then we'd roll for another set of encounters. And you actually plot your map, because one of the things that comes with this, the author, the developer, has also designed like all these different icons for you to use. You can print them out and just like move these different tokens around, or you can do things digitally if you've got something like Roll20, or in my case, I'd probably end up using Canva and just uploading all these into a folder, and then just moving and adding things around as and when needed, because I think that's a pretty neat way of doing things personally, and if it's actually what I would do actually if I was doing like a solo actual play of this on the YouTube channel. And there's only been one of these on YouTube as well, which I haven't watched because there was quite a few of them and I just haven't had the time to sit down and dedicate to it. But Astroprisma looks really fucking cool. Like, it constantly makes you move forward and focus on the adventure, the art of exploration, and combat is like really straightforward and simple. There's a lot to this, and I know that I've been very wishy-washy with this, and not showing all of this in its glory might have done me a bit of a disservice. But it's available to those who pre-order it, which I think you should all do, because it's just fucking gorgeous. And even if you just purchase this as a tool to use in other sci-fi games, like Ironsworn is another solo game where, funny enough, the focus on that is travelling around and making connections and the power of friendship and bonds and all of that. You could use that as a supplement tool for that. You could use this alongside something like Traveller or any other sci-fi game out there, like Mothership or Dead in Space. Yes, it's even as a tool for use with other games. I think it's definitely something that you should have in your arsenal. And I'm really excited to get my hands on the physical copy of this book and all the other bits and pieces that will be coming with this, like the little fold-out expansion as well. Like the Bounty Hunter thing that I mentioned, the digital version of that came out recently, and by spending experience points, you can have like these bounty hunting characters, and you can go off and like hunt people and have these additional bits of combat for extra bit of loot and weapons and whatnot. And I haven't even touched upon the fact that they're different factions and how that actually leans into a lot of the video game influences that are in this game. Like, and certain narrative choices that you make and dice rolls, whatever, will impress certain factions and decrease the other factions liking you. So it's a kind of a New Vegas sort of element to it as well. And there's just a lot to this for such a small little book, and I'm just really excited about it. And as I said, I could be waffling on this for ages, but I actually just want you to go ahead and purchase it and just like support the developer for this, because I think the work that Crescent Chimera is fucking inspiring, honestly. And I think you will have such fun even just looking through it. It's just a work of art, because you can enjoy books in so many different ways. You don't have to play them to enjoy them. Like, I've got a load of books up there, I've got some down here. I say some, there's quite a lot here actually now, and I haven't played most of these games, but I enjoy reading them and just absorbing the knowledge for it. Like me, the lore nut, like the guy who's got lore in the fucking channel name. Like, I just enjoy reading and presenting that material for people to enjoy and interpret how they wish. That's how I enjoy it. I enjoy the reading of it and absorbing it. And I think you can definitely do that as well. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun playing this game for me as a solo player. And I'm really looking forward just to get my hands on it, really. So what do you think about this? Does Astroprisma excite you? What sort of sci-fi games do you enjoy playing? I've mentioned Traveller already. I'm aware that one exists, but I've never tried it as well. I know it's a Monty Cook system game thing, but I don't know what that's like. So yeah, let me know all the sort of sci-fi games that you enjoy and play with your friends or by yourself. Like, let me know all of that in the comments below. And have you pre-ordered Crimson Chimera already? And what are your thoughts on it already? Let me know all of these lovely tidbits in the comments below. Let's just start a little fun conversation about all these different themes, and let me know the sort of ways you're going to be using Astroprisma in your game. And yeah, if you've liked this video, I'd appreciate the like and a subscribe maybe if you really do like it. And because I'm going to be doing more of these little reaction themes and looking at other TTRPGs in a more rambly format like this. So if you like that, like the video, share and subscribe it with who would love all that I do. And I'll see you on the next upload, whatever that may well be for you. And until next time, farewell.